This is the VRS DFP20 wheelbase. It is unconventional, it is impractical, ugly, weird, strange, and beyond all, surprisingly incredible, and today I'll be explaining exactly what I mean. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sim Gaming Expo is running it back again this year, and it's an event that you really will not want to miss. You see, this sim racing, flight sim, and VR expo is being held in Chicago from September 18th to the 20th of this year. Similar to last year, it is being held at this big expo hall. It goes on from Friday to Sunday. We'll have tons of sim racing exhibitors, including SimLab, GSI, Houston Velt, and many others, as well as a large esports arena with live competition. Now, tickets are out for sale now. I'll be there as always, giving out free gloves to anyone that says hi. Last year this event was awesome. This year it should be even better, so make sure to save the date and buy your tickets now at simgamingexpo.com. Alright, let's start off by addressing the elephant in the room, which is, well, how this thing actually looks. I mean, yeah, it comes with a warning label, it has two massive plugs, the Chinese factory label still on here, the entire thing looks like it's DIY'd, and in a world where most premium sim racing companies are fitting their bases with RGB lights, smooth lines, subtle details, and functionality, this thing is quite literally the opposite, and like I said, it's truly unconventional. Ultimately, it has this bare-bones industrial look to it. It has no inputs, no real functionality, it only supports front mounting unless you buy additional mounting brackets, and it has these two large plugs which connect separately onto a control box. Now, as I've said before, and as I completely made up, this very much follows VRS's no BS philosophy, because what actually matters is just what happens out on track. Now, before I get to that though, there is so much more that makes this product so uniquely weird, both in a good and in a bad way. Alright, for starters, well, what if I told you that you can actually have all of this for just $450? Like, yeah, this very much high-end direct drive unit starts at just $450 for the 6nm version, and I also have a special 5% off coupon link in the video description. Then, in a both kind of genius but also controversial way, you can just pay more to unlock more force. So, for example, if you want 9nm instead of 6, which is actually a pretty noticeable difference, all you need to do is pay more, you get a special code that you put into the software, and you literally unlock more force. Now, the idea here actually, at least to me, kind of makes sense. You see, many people who buy a more entry-level direct drive unit, like a 6nm base, eventually want to upgrade it to get more torque. So instead of switching to a whole new ecosystem or having to deal with an entirely new unit, setting it up, reselling your old one, etc., you can just pay a bit more to get more power out of it. Now, in fact, VRS is so confident in this strategy that they themselves have admitted to taking a loss on the $450 6nm units, all in hopes that users will eventually pay to upgrade. Now, admittedly, that does beg the question, can't somebody just figure out a way to jailbreak it and unlock all of the torque without paying? I mean, who knows, but I don't think that anyone who's already made the investment into a nice simulator will really want to go through all of that hassle just to save a few $100. Either way, that's not my problem. Alright, so it's clearly not the prettiest, it requires a separate control box, it has ugly cables coming out of it, and very annoyingly it only comes with front mounting available. Now, to be fair, myself and I'm sure many of you actually don't really mind the look of this space. Like I said, it looks a bit rugged, industrial, and hardcore, this very much following that true motorsport ethos. Also, if you do what I did here and mount your monitor on top of the base, then that essentially hides the plugs and cables, and you could theoretically also mount the base upside down to make them less visible. Anyways, finally moving away from that, we of course have to address the quick release, or rather the lack thereof. You see, as standard, it comes with this exposed bare shaft, pause, which requires you to either buy VRS's $99 adapter or just figure something else out. Now, this adapter has a relatively simple installation process, which Grace Dynamics made an excellent tutorial on, and this essentially gives the base a live data transferring quick release, which solves one of the biggest drawbacks that it had on initial release. And more importantly, the quick release itself is also extremely rigid and really well made. Once everything was installed and tightened down, there was no unwanted movement, no flex or play whatsoever, and even when using the base at its full 20 Nm of torque, it really was rock solid. Now, this QR also allows you to use third-party steering wheels with the same energy style connection, and of course VRS also makes their own compatible wheels, but unfortunately they really don't have a big ecosystem, at least not yet. Okay, so as I've made it very clear so far, it is obvious that this VRS DFP20 is not perfect, it's very much unconventional, and it has its drawbacks. So the only way that this base can actually get away with this is if it absolutely delivers out on track, and spoiler alert, it really does. Overall, and to put it simply, the driving feel is incredibly clear and well defined, and even right out of the box. My version here is capable of delivering up to 20 Nm of torque, so yes, it can be extremely powerful, and the added headroom is huge, but the strength itself is just one part. I found that very fine details were particularly noticeable here, from the subtle texture of the road surface to small changes in the tire loading, the initial loss of grip, curbs, bumps, and all of that. Really, none of these sensations felt muddy or blended together. Each effect came through cleanly and distinctly, similar to how they would on pricier alternatives. Especially here in iRacing, the steering felt very smooth with no obvious graininess or robotic feel. I felt the base to move very naturally and freely during slower corners, but it could also react extremely quickly when my car snapped, hit a curb, or went over a different surface. It is ultimately rapidly fast, and that speed allows the base to reproduce sharp impacts and sudden changes in directions without feeling delayed or softened. Properly adjusted, and like I said, it is almost plug and play, the overall strength, the speed, the damping, and the detail all work together in a way that felt very natural. Very importantly, the DFP20 can also use telemetry-driven force feedback in compatible games, this allowing it to use effects from the game's telemetry rather than just relying exclusively on the steering forces being sent through the standard force feedback output. This does add another layer of information with zero input lag, but like I said, felt very natural. Also, so far during my testing, the base has held up very well. It's totally silent, it hasn't noticeably heated up or had any drops in performance, and it's overall very clear that this is a very purpose-built system. Now, comparing it with something like SimHQ's 3 Pro, I would still give that one a very slight advantage in some of the most subtle sensations, but I do think it's extremely minimal and more so due to the software. I also think that Fanatec's Podium DD with their full force does add a haptic layer that I personally really like that you won't get here. However, the differences are extremely minor, more so software related, and like I've said before, in a full blind test, really not hugely distinguishable. So, in conclusion, the VRS DFP20 is the definition of function over form. But truly, all of the compromises that I've mentioned in this review are entirely outside of the most important thing, which is the driving experience. Out on track, it really performs at a level that is remarkably close, if not indistinguishable, to the most expensive options available. With that said, it is not the best choice for everybody. In fact, many things here could be deal breakers, but for somebody who prioritizes force feedback quality above all else, it may be one of the best bang for your buck purchases that you can make today.